This is a wild one. A mass murderer convicted of 4 homicides who's been doing a life sentence since 1992 has just been found to have killed his wife during a visitation in the California Department of Corrections where he strangled her to death. But it gets worse. Just a couple months prior to that, another inmate who was doing life for a violent crime also strangled his wife to death in the same exact prison. Now, these aren't just regular visitations with cameras and, security everywhere, the phones, or maybe in a little area, cafeteria. No, these are conjugals. And you would think after one woman was strangled to death by her husband, they would reevaluate their system. Nope, it was brushed under the rug. And once again, another woman was strangled to death. You go in there for up to 40 hours, no video, no audio, no cell phones, no security watching you. The only way to communicate with the officers is to get out of there or to pick up the little phone they have in the living room of these fake little houses on the prison property. And the only person to pick up that phone was the convicted mass murderer who called the COs and said, "I think my wife fainted." Let's get into it. Amador County Sheriff's Office reported this week that a Southern California woman who died while visiting her husband in Mule Creek State Prison, known as MCSP, last November after reportedly passing out was actually strangled to death, marking at least the second time in the past year that the wife of an inmate was killed during a visit at the same prison. The death of Stephanie Brinson, who also went by the name Stephanie Dowles, is now being treated as a homicide. According to the California Department of Corrections, just after 2 a.m. on November 13, 2024, inmate David Brinson used a family visit unit phone to notify officers that his wife had passed out. All this happening during the visitation. Officials said officers immediately began life-saving measures before paramedics responded and took over, ultimately pronouncing Ms. Dowles dead at the scene around 2:51 a.m. Just a few months prior, Thomas, the other victim, was found unconscious on July 1st, 2024 in a family visiting unit, where she was spending time with her domestic partner, Anthony Curry. Curry, 48, serving a life sentence for attempted second-degree murder with an enhancement of intentionally discharging a firearm causing great bodily injury. And he was also sentenced to 13 years in prison for carjacking with an enhancement of using a firearm. Understand how crazy this is. I want you to picture this. In 1993, Brinson was convicted of 4 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. Brinson served his time at Mule Creek State Prison in Ione, California. Despite his violent history, he was granted certain privileges, including the opportunity for conjugal visits due to his good behavior in prison. His victim is Stephanie Diane Dowles, and the married name would be Brinson. She was born in 1962. She was a hairstylist and a small business owner from California. She had a family of her own, including 2 children and 6 grandchildren. Her family described her as kind-hearted and a giving person. She met the mass murderer after his conviction and his life sentences. Stephanie played a significant role in supporting him emotionally and spiritually. She encouraged him in his faith, and the two eventually married while Brinson was still in prison. In November of 2024, at the conjugal visit in Mule Creek State Prison, Brinson and Dowles spent time in a private family unit that allows prisoners and their family members to bond. The typical duration for a conjugal visit in California is around 30 to 40 hours. However, Brinson's visit with Dowles was not closely supervised as per the usual protocol for such visits. Now remember, someone was just strangled to death in the same exact conjugal housing that they're in less than 3 months before that. And the mindset of prison is we have to keep it going. So we will take a mass murderer and try it with him. Around 2 a.m., Brinson used a family visit unit phone to report that his wife had fainted. Paramedics and prison officers were dispatched to the scene, but despite their efforts, Dowles was pronounced dead at 2:51 a.m. on the same night. So you see that? It took 51 minutes for them to figure out what was going on inside of a prison. Initially, Brinson claimed that she had simply passed out. However, an investigation later revealed that Dowles had been strangled and her death was ruled a homicide. The Amador County Coroner confirmed the cause of death as strangulation. Her family, especially her son, expressed disbelief that such an incident could occur given Brinson's violent history And the fact that it just happened 3 months ago with a violent career offender doing a life sentence, and he is a mass murderer. As of March 2025, David Brinson, the mass murderer, has not been formally charged in relation to Dowell's death, though he remains the prime suspect. Wow, that's a lot to take in there. First, in Florida, you're lucky if you even can go to a lower security prison if you have under 10 years. You can't make it to anything below a medium and leave a main line if you have 10 years or more. Any violent crimes, murder, shit like that, you cannot even have certain type of visitations. You're in closed management. You'll never see a work camp or work release or any type of halfway housing until you were released and you choose to do whatever the fuck you want when you get out. I mean, picture that. Imagine you're a family member of a victim that he killed, one of the four, or the other dude who was shooting people, carjacking people, and you look on TV and you see he's allowed to be passionate, intimate with his wife. It's got to be very, very disheartening. I was reading some of the rules, and you can't go if you're a chomo, sex charge, any of that weird fucking bullshit that we hate on here. However, let's keep it real. If you kill 4 people, you are not allowed to have passionate intercourse with your wife. You're basically telling a man who's been locked up since he was 20 some odd years old that he can have whatever he wants and there is no consequences. Especially, imagine your mother went in there and they took accountability. They said they did not agree with their mother doing any of that. Mother is a beautiful woman who was very church going and was a little lonely and had been on and off with him, finally got married, didn't bring it into her kid's life for almost 15 years. They didn't approve of it, but she's a grown woman. But none of them knew about the murder that took place months prior to her death. And it's 2025. Her murder occurred in November of 2024. And now he's the prime suspect? It's unreal. This is the realities of prison. Whether you're a civilian, an inmate, it doesn't matter. They do not give a fuck. They have all the power, absolute corruption, and when something goes wrong, whatever it may be, they have enough time and resources to clean it up and make it look however they want. Think about that. Mass murderer, strangles wife to death. 4 months later, he's now a prime suspect. Huh? How does that work? If that happened in your house, God forbid, or anybody else's house, you'd be arrested on the scene. He does it. He's not even arrested, facing anything. I mean, it's mind-boggling, but that's prison for you. No matter what happens, you need to know one thing. In there, you're on your own. The West Coast is a little different from where I was in the South. We have no luxuries, no AC, no conjugals. We lock down. We get the shit beat out of us. You know, it's hard time back there. And I've seen incidents where somebody yelled at one of the visitors that they had, you know, their wife. They locked the whole prison down and shut off visits for 6 months. And the reason why a lot of times they keep this going, it's just unbelievable to think someone was just murdered 3 months before this beautiful lady was murdered. And they didn't even decide to say, you know what, maybe we should watch the inmates a little more. It's the money. All you got to do is follow the money. Do you know how much comes in off those visitations? How much it costs to do those visitations, to rent those rooms, and whoever knows what else is coming in with her or with them? It shouldn't surprise you. In prison, it's absolute corruption. Inmates go missing. Body parts go missing. They get their heads cut off. Organs get cut out. Inmates get drowned in toilets. And now you're seeing a civilian coming in there who taught this man about life and spiritual guidance and tried to be there for him, gets alone with her and kills her right there. And they don't arrest him on the scene. They just send him back to his prison cell and keep investigating. What's there to investigate? She fainted? Or were there hand marks on her throat where he strangled her, like the other one who died in July? That's why I tell you guys, stay out, stay free. Us.